UDL, we're going to quickly go through and just get to the meat of the instruction piece so that we can talk about some of our other learners who may not necessarily have an IEP or documented disability, but still have learning difficulties in our class due to a language barrier, possibly a cultural barrier, and other barriers that don't require documentation. So there's what we're going to do real quickly. Just talk about some of the principles of UDL, and then we're going to get some examples and resources, and then we probably won't get to this little, hey, let's get together and talk about it, because we got to go over to the computer lab here in a half an hour. So universal design actually started with architecture. Is your physical environment welcoming? So like this person is obviously going to have a very hard time getting up those stairs. And so Mr. Mace coined this term, and then went into what are the solutions for universal design in general. It's an intentional approach, and all of these things are the same when you're building buildings and when you're building lessons and activities for your students in your classroom. Anticipates a variety of needs, broadens usability to public, more economical, and respects human diversity. And speaking of timely issues, there couldn't be a better time to talk about respecting diversity within our instructional approaches. So what kinds of universal designs or solutions are located on your campus or facility? We don't have time to talk about that. I do know that Mars struggles. Okay, so here's the meat of what we're going to talk about. You need to be aware of that UDL is the proactive design of our courses to ensure they are educationally accessible regardless of learning style, physical, or sensory abilities. So like learning styles aren't necessary, they're not documentable. They're preferences. And you're going to have your diverse populations who have possibly grown up in a different education system trying to learn here, even with a different language. And so we've got to start really thinking about how to, and I don't want to use the word accommodate, because I don't want us to get confused with the don't give them accommodations if they don't have the paperwork. We're talking about the difference between what Sarah was saying and what I am saying is we are educating the human being, okay? And all humans are different, and we may want to think about some different ways to approach the different people in our classrooms. So, just as physical barriers exist in our physical environment, curricular barriers exist in our instructional environment. And so that's the piece that we're going to concentrate on. So here's kind of the difference between your physical environments. Barriers may exist in our architectural environment. They may exist in our classroom curriculum. Here, we're going to design the space proactively, unlike Mars, to accommodate. But we're going to proactively think about designing our instruction. Retrofitting, going back. I mean, they're obviously not working on Mars right now. And this piece can be, you know, we've already had a discussion about how difficult it can be to obtain those accommodations. So possibly thinking ahead of the ball game in anticipation of something like this happening, maybe you could usurp that problem by tweaking a little bit. I mean, I know your tests and your exams and your curriculum is really important, but there's no reason to kind of step back and assess and be like, can all learners learn what I'm about to teach them in the way that I'm teaching it? So a building barrier might be stairs, a change made to the building might be a ramp. okay? A learning barrier might be a textbook. A change made for learning might be video. Okay. So just little bitty changes and things like that. Does one size fit all? For a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Now, I wish that was a great session, and I'm glad Sarah came and discussed, and I wanted to let it go, but accommodating, I don't want to use that word, give me another word, English. Differentiated, thank you. Differentiating, I differentiated instruction for 20 years in my mathematics classroom. I taught the lowest level, third, fourth grade reading level in a ninth grade algebra class, definite processing problems. Those particular students didn't have the support or guidance from their parent or guardian to go through the accommodation paperwork process. They just had to be, my instruction had to be diversified. I have a student flunk in every class, and I give them a test, write down math equations, which is a tedious process, flunks. But when I come up, look what I did again. But when I come up and I bring them up to my desk and I say, I don't know where, at this point I don't remember any of their names, but so-and-so, I know you know how to do this. I have seen you do it before. And then they sit there and they verbally explain to me the steps and they get it right. Well, guess what the next test we took was? Verbal. Because they are having trouble getting it from point A to point B. It's here, it's just not coming out here. So it's those types of things that you really want to consider, especially with our language learners, I think is kind of, and I had a bunch of those too, where you really have to consider what things in your curriculum can you change. And that's what we're going to go to now. We won't talk about brain-based learning. Everybody learns different. Does everybody agree with that? Okay. All right, so here we are. All right. So we have 3 principles for effective instruction using universal design. Represent, engage, and express. Okay? Represent is showing essential course concepts in support of recognition learning networks. It just means what different ways can you represent your content so that other people may understand it. Engage, encourage student participation in support of their effective learning networks. That's like, you know, you may not have a student who wants to stand up and talk in front of the class, but they may want to get on Padlet and post a little note up here. So they're still engaged in your class, but you're not forcing them to be uncomfortable. You're allowing them their learning style to be able to tell you that they know something. Express, this offer various formats through which students can demonstrate what they have learned. I hinted yesterday at the art of including student choice here, especially like within big, you know, again, I know your exams are really important. I know there's multiple choice questions out there that you have to have your students know in order to like save people's lives, Like we don't want to mess with that, okay? But in expressing kind of larger conceptual ideas, you know, offer them, hey, you can write a paper, you can make a video, you can do a presentation. So there's different ways to consider students showing you that they've learned something. So we don't have time really for think, pair, share, but just think for a second, at what point, take a moment and recall an activity that you offered in one of your classes where you noted that several students struggled. Think about that for a second. When have students struggled in your class? Presentation?
Anything outside the box.
Anything outside the box? feedback? Critical thinking. Yeah. So identify one teaching and one student variable that may have impacted student success. So if it's a difficult subject, what variable could have changed so that it wasn't so difficult? Yes, sir.
Listen, I personally think critical thinking needs to be taught, but there are some students that come in there pretty good at it to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see that struggling, I want the students to think out loud so I can see what their pathways are.
Yeah, that's
and
a really...
so that we can get to where we're going and putting the pieces together.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then I put them on their own. And in this is being A&P, they want to talk.
Right.
And show. So we do it together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All righty. So we're going to go through, and I think this would be perfect. We're going to go through each principle. The first principle is representation. How do I present essential course content to my students? Knowing that students access information in a variety of formats, consider varying how you express essential course content. This increases the likelihood of information access and comprehension, and ultimately the effectiveness of your instruction. So again, and I've said this a couple times, I don't know if it was to you guys or when I'm talking nerd and my family starts ignoring me. But basically, the humans learn best through bimodal instruction. So you're listening and looking, you're reading and listening. So you're tapping two of your senses at the same time with instruction. And that right there knocks 2 out of your 3 learning styles. Okay. Also representation. After we get done here, I didn't count, Caroline. How many? Do we have enough to go straight to the lab?
25 people, 25 instructors in the room right now. So that'll work fine.
Okay, all right. So when we leave here, we're all gonna pile like clowns in a Volkswagen in the CIS lab, and we're gonna walk about. And the clowns all pile and they keep running out of the Volkswagen. That's what we're going to be all smushed in that CIS lab together. And we're going to show you how you can work on your presentations and make them ADA compliant, just like what Sarah was doing, and talking about, let's consider, does this screen look okay for somebody who may or may be colorblind, that sort of thing. But there's other different ways that you can present content using technology to make sure that you're reaching all people. So another way that you can have your students make sure that they understand is, let's say you provide them a lecture or a video and you've got a class discussion, have them organize your content in a graphic organizer. Then okay, they are representing what you taught, and you can see it and know if they've got everything lined up where it's supposed to be. And there's all kinds of advanced organizers and graphic organizers. And then you can see there's been some studies done. There's 3 different ways to think about graphic organizers. 3 different, there's more than 3, so we're going to talk about 3. You can give them a completed graphic organizer of your course, of your lesson for that day, how everything is connected. And that way they can listen to you and watch you up here and follow along with your graphic organizer. You can have them construct their own after, to make sure, kind of like a little formative assessment. Did you get everything? Or you can partially complete one and they fill in the rest. This is the one I used most of the time in my teaching environment. Mainly because if you give them one that's already done, at least at the high school level, they quit paying attention to you. I'm going to assume that it's not that much different here. Okay? Here, I had those kids that couldn't keep up with the writing, the actual physical writing. So we compromised and went halfway. And that's, I guess, one of the main things that you can do when thinking about your diverse populations is compromise. I know we are all steadfast and true to what we feel like we have to cover, but really, what good is it if our people aren't learning?
I'm going to go back to the point that John brought up. I think one of the things I've struggled with is assuming that people come to the class with a certain set of skills. So I'm going to look at this as a sequential form of scaffolding learning here. If somebody comes to you never having seen one, having them completed provides a structure that might be new to them, that they've never seen before. Going to the partially complete scaffolding allows you to see what they've been able to apply based on what they were given initially. Okay, so you can check for understanding to see that they're getting the main concept behind what the graphic organizer is supposed to be. When they construct it on their own, to me, that becomes more the summative assessment.
Right.
Where
Did you
you're
get
saying,
it?
Did you get it?
Yeah.
And if they haven't, then I go back and I reteach in a different way.
And you got me thinking, you could also just have all three available
Exactly.
to them and when they walk in. And again, that's more work for you. I got to design 2 tests. I have to create 3 graphic organizers. Dear Lord, Ellen, what kind do you think I have? I understand. We're not talking about revamping everything. Just little things that we can do along the way will help those particular people. All right. So what is engagement? How do you involve my students in the learning process? Knowing that active participation is key to learning, consider adopting various ways that students can actively participate in your course. I think we're getting there. It sounds like to me we are employing different strategies and different techniques, you know, the technology, the minute papers, the group work, I think we're not awesome because you're never going to be the best. Y'all understand that's the way teaching is, correct? I'll never be the best teacher ever. That's impossible. But we're well much improved than we were, in my opinion, a year ago.
I'm disappointed. I thought you were perfect.
I appreciate that, but I have a long way to go. But it's cool because I like learning, and I just happen to like learning about teaching. So, you know, we're still living and breathing the dream. So this is one I came across, the pause procedure. This is one we hadn't brought up because at this point in the ballgame, finding an active learning technique or strategy that I have not mentioned to you is getting more difficult. And that's another reason I know that we have improved, because I'm running out of lists to show you. But this one, short periodic breaks to review notes and or discuss course content, which I think we kind of talked about before. You break up and you do think, pair, share. But in this particular case, you know, I don't know, we just had to use this one, but just pausing and letting people soak it in and figure out what's going on seems to be cool.
Sometimes, Ellen, though, when we take those breaks, we'll ask students, do you have any questions?
And then you just get this.
You have a question. What I found is if you give them a question, pose a question to them, and let them respond to that works better, because then you're going to give them something that you want them to think about.
Right. That's a really good idea. Kind of flip the grid on them a little bit.
But at the same time, one of the things I found out as a teacher, we have to know how long, how long do we stay quiet?
Wait time. It's wait time. It's called wait time.
So how long is wait time?
And that's an important question. That's an important question when you're dealing with English language learners.
Right.
They take, right, exactly. So their reception takes longer, and their processing takes longer, and their production takes longer. So, I mean, you know, you might say, well, I'll give them that amount of time and that's it. But somebody who's still learning the language is going to take longer.
Yeah, that's a critical point. And here we go.
Yeah, empathy is a key point here. To really put yourself into your student position. The best way is it, I'm English learner too, and get it. I don't know if you're a psychology teacher, get it Japanese version of the psychology book and try to understand.
Right.
That's okay.
That's what it looks
It's what it's that. That's how we feel.
Right.
Okay. So really, do not ask proper questions like that because we were just what we don't answer, but we're just panicking, trying to translate it into working memories, just collapse because of emotional pain. It's just very embarrassing.
It's processing. It's in giving time to process information.
Well, and I think one of the things in teaching our teachers to teach is every question we teach them, every question you ask needs to be directly aligned with the primary teaching goal of the day. Okay, so that first premise is sort of instilled in them really deeply. But when it comes to the questioning, you can ask a question and then say break into pairs.
You think fair share.
Mm-hmm.
And then have one of the pairs report back to the group. But that way, you're not stuck with that awkward long pause wait time, and you're utilizing your instructional time by having them talk together.
I really like the whole conversation that just happened, especially about the processing. Again, that's what my students struggled with, processing, like just physically how to write out the steps in a math problem. Yes.
I know there's probably somewhere that translates textbooks. Like you can upload a digital version of the textbook that translates those things.
Yeah.
Is that something that we offer or we recommend? Is that beneficial?
I'm gonna have to defer to Caroline.
My answer to that would be that if the student is really, if their total scores were truly low, so low that you're thinking they may not be appropriately admitted here, then that would be an option. But generally speaking, students are sent to this country or choose to go to this country in the interest of improving their English. And the best way for them to do that, the fundamental way for them to start doing that is with reading. They read the words, they see them in English, and then that prepares them to produce, language learning is an input-output thing. So when they get the input from the reading, that improves their output in the production in class. So I would encourage them to read this too. Thank you.
Am I breaking any laws when I might say, okay, get together in pairs, and if you're ESL, make sure you're with a native speaker?
Well, there's actually some benefit. It's interesting that you asked that question because I was thinking about that. And one of the good things about having them, I mean, you can strategically group them depending on what you're having them do. I mean, if you would like for them to have someone who is stronger in the language work with them, but perhaps for a guide, then you can do it like that way. But there are other times I think it's beneficial for them to sit together and work out certain things because a lot of times, the students that are from Panama, they came as a group, and they have different proficiency levels, and generally there are some that are stronger than others, but sometimes, John, you may have seen this, they're sometimes grappling with, an assignment that they're doing, and so they're trying to understand a lot of times what the assignment is, and, I think it helps for them to feel comfortable just discussing it amongst each other, and when they finally come to an understanding, then they can speak to the class. But there's some benefit in them just sitting together because there's that level of comfort, and them using the first language. I don't see it as a detriment because that's the language that they have to communicate, and it helps them to work through the English. So I think there's benefit in either way. Yeah.
It's like when they're doing peer review or editing papers, it's the blind leading the blind sometimes. And
Right, so in that case, you
I would
probably want the
diversify,
strategic group,
yeah,
right, that's
like
right. You wanna
heterogeneous
diversify.
groups.
Exactly, that's right.
So this is a really good, interesting point. Like when we were talking earlier about like intentionally designing our instruction, I mean, that's what we're doing right now. Okay, during this particular activity, I'm going to pair my students up homogeneously. So I have language learners with language learners and everybody like that. Okay, during this particular strategy, the peer review, we may need to switch that up. And so, I mean, those, I guess, that little small conscious effort can make a world of difference to the performance of your students.
When you have large groups, when I was teaching DBS class, 35 students, a lot of them were ESL. I developed groups at the very beginning, first day of class. And every time we did an assignment that they needed to discuss some things and answer, I made sure that I intentionally grouped them so that the ESL students were among English speakers. Because what happens is the first language they learn is the social language. So they need to be among students that are talking and speaking English so they can better their English. But it also helps them to listen to the discussion so they can process the information.
Again, it's input to output. Well, yeah, I mean, there's some benefit to that, but there's also a disadvantage to that. Because what you have is you have students who are in a setting that's not natural to them. And so there tends to be this dominant and subordinate relationship in those groups. So those students will stay quiet, knowing that they're among students that are the native language speakers, they're more confident. And so, that's why you really have to think about the grouping. How, will they be at a disadvantage? Because a lot of times if you put them together and with students who are native English speakers, they'll just stay quiet and they won't contribute to the group.
Well, but I want to build on this for a second. The one thing I would ask us never, ever, ever to do, and I think Kim and Gail would agree with this, never have a student initially try something on their own. You guys work on this individually, and then follow up with, those of you who didn't get it, I'm going to pair you up with somebody.
Right. That's demeaning. That's very demeaning.
And that goes along with that power differential that Gail was just talking about. Because you have somebody who's already been embarrassed, somebody who's been subordinated, being stuck with somebody who's the more expert other.
Right.
And neither one of them wants to work together.
That's a very good point. All right, we got to roll. We're done talking about engagement. What is expression? Yeah, pause. Was that sufficient? How do I ask my students to show what they know? Knowing that students have preferences for how they express themselves, consider providing multiple ways for students to demonstrate their competency. I've harped on that enough, and I absolutely live and breathe that statement as an educator. I can't not but do that. So takeaway strategies: use a variety of evaluation methods during a unit or chapter, written essays, projects, model building. Do not solely rely on quizzes and tests. You are not getting the whole picture there. I mean, even if you are a native speaker for all languages of every language ever, you still need to do something else besides taking a quiz or a test to demonstrate competency. Providing student options to demonstrate mastery of the course learning outcomes. Inside your folder, I'm glad I wrote that handout. See handout. So inside your folder, there's a list of different things you can do that actually accompany this presentation. Thank goodness I wrote that on there. And then I will say also in your folder, there is a list called,
Here you go.
you're going to need yours, Charles. Yeah, this one. Okay, the one that's in color, you need to make sure you take this one with you a, I guess, language barrier kind of, and they didn't get it all, because of their processing time. They weren't able to fully explain themselves, or they're having trouble verbally fully explain themselves. Don't forget, we all have Moodle discussion forum boards where you could extend the conversation to that platform if you run out of class time, which is what I'm going to do here. If you want to talk more, I'll set up a forum. But you do have that. We also, virtual clickers. Again, that's like, what is that? Socrative. Yeah, it's kind of a virtual clicker thing. So you don't single them out. UDL is not specialized privileges. It's not special accommodations. I think we've made that, discern that pretty clear. You're not watering down your academic expectations. You're changing the way they are able to show you that they have learned what you have taught them. Your content hasn't changed, okay? Your expectations haven't changed. How they can show you is what we're talking about. You can't fix it. It's not magic. It takes time. It takes negotiation. Well, in this case, I want to do it this way. In this case, it might be better to do it this way. So it's all, and it's not prescriptive. And I'm not going to talk about this slide. I'll let you read. There's some instructional biddings up there if you want them. If not, it's break. At 10:15, you need to be in the CIS lab with that, whatever sheet I just held up that has color on it. Thank you.